Natasha Elberg. George Clark.
Traveled to Annapolis this morning. It's great to be back with you in person. Last year we did virtual because we could not be live in person, but it's also wonderful that we are having many families who are joining us remotely as well. So we wanted to be able to reach the largest number of individuals as possible. So thank you everybody for being here. Each year, one of the hardest parts of this ceremony is putting faces to the names of those lives who were taken all too soon. We've heard many of the stories of your loved ones in these photos over the years, and seeing their faces, it reminds us why we fight every day to stop these senseless deaths. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the guests and partners we have with us today. Governor Larry Hogan for his unwavering support, our Maryland Department of Transportation Secretary Greg Slater, Maryland State Police Superintendent Colonel Woodrow Jones, our victim impact speaker, Kimberly Sizemore, the Maryland Highway Safety Office for their tireless work in putting this together and all the staff, the Washington Regional Alcohol Program, Kurt Erickson, Tina Bose, Maryland Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Robin Stimpson, Alicia O'Neill, as well as all law enforcement agencies in Maryland, including the many who are represented here today. Gives me great pride to introduce our first speaker, Greg Slater, our Secretary at the Maryland Department of Transportation. He joins us with 24 years of experience at the State Highway Administration and has immense knowledge of traffic safety, and more importantly, he feels that passion that I know we all feel. As Secretary, Greg has an unwavering commitment to support the Highway Safety Office mission of zero fatalities on Maryland's roadways. Please welcome MDOT Secretary Greg Slater.
Thank you, Chrissy, and good morning to everyone. Thank you all for being here today. This is the second year I've had the honor of attending the Maryland Remembers event as Secretary of Transportation. Throughout my career at MDOT, I've worked closely with the Maryland Highway Safety Office, and I'm committed as Secretary in that mission of zero fatalities. Last spring, in April of 2020, Maryland was selected as one of the 4 states to join the National Governors Association Learning Collaborative to strengthen and leverage data to address impaired driving. Taking part in that learning collaborative has enabled our state to share best practices, to learn innovative and evidence-based programs and practices to help us continue to address the issue of impaired driving. The governor selected a core team who represented a wide range of expertise to take advantage of this opportunity. Joining myself and Administrator Nizer was Colonel Jones from the Maryland State Police, Secretary Mike Leahy from the Maryland Department of Information Technology, Dr. Tim Kearns from our Highway Safety Office, Rebecca Phipps, who is our Chief Toxicologist at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and Subna Shandar, the Deputy Director of Environmental Health with the Department of Health. We really learned a lot in that effort. The outcomes from that learning collaborative include an improved and expanded data system to track impaired driving offenders from arrest to adjudication, a process to increase judicial acceptance of drug recognition experts' evidence in the absence of blood alcohol tests, and a program to better educate prosecutors. Shortly, you'll hear from Kimberly Sizemore, who works at MDOT in our IT contract management office. Kimberly's story, much like yours, sticks with us year after year and is the why in what we're doing here today. We will not stop working until we've achieved our mission of 0 fatalities, so no family has to endure what you have endured. It is now my honor to introduce one of the strongest advocates whose top priority is protecting the lives of all Marylanders. Governor Hogan's commitment to highway safety and preventing deaths at the hands of an impaired driver has been expanded over the past 7 years through legislation, law enforcement funding, technology, and safety grants. Governor Hogan has committed more than $12 million in highway safety grants, with more than $3 million specifically allocated to combat impaired driving. But most of all, his attendance at Maryland Remembers over the past several years demonstrates his personal dedication to ending the loss that each of you have experienced. Please welcome Governor Larry Hogan.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Secretary Slater. It's an honor to be here with all of you once again for this 18th annual Maryland Remembers ceremony as we pay tribute to those Marylanders who lost their lives at the hands of an impaired driver. This week, families across Maryland and across America will gather to celebrate Thanksgiving. And after all that our state and our nation has been through over the past year, there is a great deal to be thankful for. One of the things I am sincerely thankful for is each and every one of you. Year after year, you have come here, you bring a photo of your loved one, you tell their stories, and you never stop fighting to prevent more needless deaths from impaired driving. I'm inspired by your courage and by your compassion. I know that this time of year is especially difficult for you and your families. There's an empty seat at your dinner table. But what you are doing truly matters, and it saves lives. Choosing to speak out about the heartbreak that you have endured truly does have the power to change the behavior of others and to save lives. I want you to know that I will always continue to stand with you, and we remain committed to doing everything we can to prevent impaired driving crashes and fatalities. With your support, we enacted Noah's Law to require ignition interlock devices for anyone convicted of drunk driving in Maryland. After a multi-year effort, we successfully enacted the Repeat Drunk Driving Offenders Act to impose stronger penalties on drunk and drugged driving offenders. And as Secretary Slater said, in a few moments, you will hear from Kimberly Sizemore, whose son, Bennett, was struck by a drunk driver who had previously been convicted of 8 DUIs. In April, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. It's the first time a defendant has received the maximum sentence in Anne Arundel County under this new law. Maryland is also continuing to pursue the latest technology in this fight. We're partnering with the Driver Alcohol Detection System for Safety program to test alcohol detection technology. It's now installed in state-owned vehicles. Today, we're joined by 13 officers who recently graduated from the state's DUI Institute. They're joining our aggressive law enforcement efforts to remove drunk and drug drivers from Maryland roadways. And we continue to partner with programs including DUI and drug courts to help people address and overcome their addictions. And today I'm pleased to announce that Maryland is just one of 5 states to receive a grant from the Governor's Highway Safety Association. And beginning this Wednesday through the new year, we'll be offering $10 rideshare credits to Marylanders all across the state during this holiday season. Last year, over 1,300 people were arrested in Maryland from Thanksgiving through New Year's Day for driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs. No one should ever get behind the wheel of a car and drive impaired. And we hope that this creative new initiative will encourage more Marylanders to make better choices. Together, we truly are making progress. Last year, we saw a decrease in impaired driving fatalities. But tragically, we still lost 120 Marylanders due to the reckless actions of a drunk or a drugged driver. Even one death is one too many, which is why we must continue working together, why we must continue to tell the stories of those that we've lost, and we must continue to do everything in our power to save lives and to prevent future tragedies. May God bless each and every one of you and your families and the loved ones that we remember today. Thank you.
I want to thank Governor Hogan, not only for his personal presence here over the last 5 years, but also because policy does matter. And Ms. Sizemore knows that firsthand, unfortunately, with horrific tragedy that she had to go through. But the fact that the law was changed, it made a difference and it continues to make a difference. And I really want to personally thank Governor Hogan for always being there, supporting the families. I know how much they communicate to me. That makes a difference. It really does. Partnership is so important as we talk about highway safety. It's not something that we can do by ourselves. And especially that partnership with state and local law enforcement is really vital to highway safety and impaired driving prevention, as you know. I'm proud to introduce our next speaker, Colonel Jones, who's had a long career in law enforcement spanning more than 3 decades. Colonel Jones began his law enforcement career as a Maryland State Cadet. During his 27-year tenure with the state police, he spent equal time in both patrol and investigative roles, serving in every command position within the Field Operations Bureau. He was then appointed chief of the Maryland Transportation Authority Police in November 2015, and in 2020, Governor Hogan appointed Colonel Jones to superintendent of Maryland State Police. We could not have a better partner in our efforts to stop impaired driving. Colonel Jones.
Thank you. Please know that all of Maryland's law enforcement community is with you, mourning the loss of your loved ones today and every day. The stories in this room will never be forgotten. It's a privilege to be here today as we honor the victims of each of these stories. Driving while impaired is deadly. Yet it continues across our nation. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, approximately 1/3 of all traffic crashes involving fatalities involve drunk drivers with a blood alcohol content of 0.08 or higher. Clearly, combining impairment with a vehicle is a bad decision. 1 week ago, a Maryland state trooper in Prince George's County had to deliver notification to a father that his 26-year-old son would not be coming home that day. It was a Sunday morning. The young man had been struck by a drunk driver while outside of his vehicle on US Route 50. These tragic stories and many others in this room are preventable tragedies we fight to eliminate. As we all look forward to the holidays, please know that every police officer in this state is working to drive down the number of injuries and deaths that occur on our highways. To the victims and the survivors of impaired driving, it is important you know that we, as law enforcement, will never lose focus. We continue to make arrests for impaired driving. To date, troopers have arrested nearly 6,000 drunk or drug drivers. For those who continue to violate the law and ignore the potential consequences of their actions, it's only a matter of time before a tragic situation occurs. As law enforcement, our top priority is to save lives. I hope everyone in this room who has lost a family member or friend recognizes that we are in this fight with you to end impaired driving. SPIDER, defined as the State Police Impaired Driving Effort, is a specialized team of Maryland State Troopers whose sole purpose is to eliminate impaired drivers from our roadways. They have made nearly 4,000 DUI arrests since the team's inception in 2013. They continue to make a difference every weekend, especially in those areas where data shows a high number of impaired driving crashes. Thanks to the funding from the Maryland Department of Transportation's Highway Safety Office, SPIDER continues to work towards zero deaths while increasing the odds of catching impaired drivers using tools such as MDOT, which is the Mobile Breath Alcohol Test Truck. This vital piece of equipment continues to assist law enforcement agencies statewide with their impaired driving initiatives. This truck is equipped with state-of-the-art equipment and expert personnel to ensure more efficient processing at the scene of an impaired driving arrest. MDOT also works as a giant billboard for all motorists to see, promoting the fact that law enforcement and public safety officials are serious about removing the most dangerous drivers on our highways. Together with our partners, we continue to seek innovative ways to cast the widest net possible to capture these criminals. I'd like to recognize all of those who have become advocates supporting the victims of violent crime. The profound contributions of Mothers Against Drunk Driving have helped many to cope with the loss of a loved one. Last week, they used our Frederick Barrack as a backdrop to announce the 35th anniversary of their designated driver campaign, Tie One On for Safety. Thank you for continuing to spread your life-saving message of designating a sober driver. I would also like to acknowledge RAP, the Washington Regional Alcohol Program, for their efforts over the last 39 years to fight drunk driving and underage drinking. Since its inception, their Sober Ride program has provided over 80,000 free rides home to would-be impaired drivers. And to our partners at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, thank you for your advocacy, educational programs, and partnership with law enforcement. Finally, our partners at the Maryland Department of Transportation Motor Vehicle Administration deserve recognition for their continued support of law enforcement and providing us the tools to continue this crusade to end these tragedies. As we implement more sobriety checkpoints, more saturation patrols, and highly visible enforcement campaigns, we strive to reach these individuals before they make a bad decision. The moment an impaired driver gets behind the wheel is the moment they have made a choice to affect the course of innocent people's lives. It is a decision that comes with oftentimes devastating consequences. There are far too many options available to circumvent a tragic incident from occurring, whether it's a free ride program, a cab, or designating a sober driver. The investment into saving lives is apparent. From public awareness to high visibility operations and increased enforcement, we will do all we can. There are no excuses for the tragedies each of you live with every day. I applaud each and every one of you who has the courage to come here every year to tell your story. Simply put, being a responsible driver is the simplest way to ensure a safe and happy holiday season for everyone. The rules are clear. Abiding by them and respecting others' right to be safe is all that is needed. Life is precious. To all of you who have had to endure the loss of someone special because of this horrific crime, I offer my sincerest condolences. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Jones, and we thank all of our law enforcement officers who put themselves on the line, especially with DUI enforcement. We know what a difficult and risky job that is, and we certainly couldn't do what we do without you, and we're so grateful for your support. It's become a tradition at Maryland Remembers to hear those stories. We've talked a lot about that. And I think it's such an important part of the program because the numbers are important, but at the end of the day, it's about the impact it has on each and every one of your lives. And we're always so grateful to the victim speakers who are willing to come up and tell the story that we know is not easy. We know it's difficult for all of you. We can see that in your faces. And I really want to thank Kimberly Sizemore for being with us here today. She works for the Maryland Department of Transportation, one of our colleagues. And she's going to talk a lot about how her life has been changed based on the event that happened with an impaired driver. Ms. Sizemore.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share my family's story on how impaired driving has affected us. And to thank you all for coming here today to carry on the memory of your loved ones. While my story I'm about to tell you differs from most of you, we have all suffered an incredible loss. For my son Bennett and me, we lost the freedom to live our lives as we once had due to the selfish choice of an impaired driver. Well, I'm fortunate enough to say that my son is still here. On May 12, 2020, I thought I had lost him. As doctors put it, I should have lost him due to the severity of the crash and the injuries that he received. Bennett was a 27-year-old, thriving in his career as an electrician. He had just bought a waterfront home and a boat that he wanted to enjoy his summer on. He had plans to have a family, raise children of his own, coach their sports teams, and enjoy a normal life. On May 12, 2020, someone took those future plans away from him. Bennett was off that day to attend the funeral of his grandmother. He went home to change his clothes and drove to a nearby boat store. He left the store at 2:30 in the afternoon and was driving northbound on Fort Smallwood Road in Pasadena in a small Dodge Stratus. At that same time, a man driving southbound in a Dodge Ram pickup truck with a blood alcohol content 4 times the legal limit and still actively drinking crossed the middle lane. Bennett was hit head on, changing our lives forever. Bennett was transported to University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center in Baltimore for severe life-altering permanent injuries to his right ankle and wrist. The injuries Bennett suffered have caused him to lose his job, his career, the inability to climb a ladder, fully bend his hand, and difficulty walking. He can no longer continue in that career he spent years building on. To fully enjoy the lifestyle that he worked so hard for, the ongoing financial implications, medical bills, loss of wages, inability to work are devastating for Bennett and ongoing still to this day. Following the crash, Bennett's life was forever changed because someone else's choice to commit a crime. Todd Beaker took that freedom and independence away from my Bennett. During the crash investigation, it was found that Todd Beaker had full and empty Budweiser cans in his car, along with a bottle of vodka. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Todd Beaker was completely inebriated. This was Todd Beaker's 8th DUI arrest over multiple states. Work is being done to improve the reciprocity between states to ensure drivers like Todd Beaker are immediately removed from our roads. In April of 2021, thanks to the hard dedication and work of Assistant State's Attorney Carolyn Granis and Assistant Director of Victim Services, Witness Services, Casey Hall, Todd Beaker was serving 2 consecutive 10-year sentences for his impaired driving convictions. I can now breathe easier knowing he's officially off our roads. While awaiting trial for the DUI charges, resulting from Bennett's crash, 53 days later, on July 4th, 2020, Todd Beaker was involved in another impaired driving crash in Calvert County. By collaborating with other states' attorneys in jurisdictions where other prior convictions occurred, Carolyn Gramis ensured the fullest extent of the law was applied to Todd Beaker's case. I'm Bennett's mom, and I'm also an MDOT employee, which means I'm fortunate to see firsthand how our state is working hard toward eliminating impaired driving. In 2019, Governor Hogan signed into law House Bill 707, which increased the penalty for drunk drivers with more than 3 prior convictions from 3 years to 10 years in prison. We have all lost someone or something due to the selfish choice of an impaired driver. We must never forget the completely innocent victims and family members, and remember the effect of impaired driving does to not only end for any of us when the impaired driver is brought to justice. It can happen at any time of day. My hope in sharing my family's story is that we can persuade our friends, families, neighbors to think twice before driving impaired and or to report impaired driving behavior to authorities before another tragedy occurs. On the day of Bennett's crash, someone saw Todd Beaker stumble into the liquor store and allowed him to return to his car in his driver's seat. Please, if you see someone attempting to drive impaired or being overserved, step up and stop those involved. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Kimberly for sharing her remarks. The impact of these crashes go on for years. I know many of you have had crashes that happened years ago, and it doesn't matter what that year is, whether it's a recent crash or something that happened longer ago, that impact is felt forever. And we thank you so much for sharing Bennett's story. I can assure you, for each and every one of us, we carry these stories in our hearts as we think about legislation, as we think about what we do with our programs. It really does make a difference. And I know it makes a difference as well for those hearing the story as they decide what to do and that personal responsibility. We certainly appreciate that. It's also become an part of this ceremony to honor a person who has dedicated their life to making a significant difference in stopping these senseless impaired driving fatalities. Mr. Kevin Quinlan, who many of you know, who the award is named after, did just that, spending 38 years in traffic safety. He made a lasting impact on those around him and was an advocate for seatbelt use as well as impaired driving prevention. This year, the recipient of the Kevin Quinlan Award is Officer Jamie Derbyshire, who has served with the Montgomery County Police Department for 19 years. She currently serves as the coordinator for the Chemical Test Unit and Alcohol Unit. In this capacity, she's responsible for various training initiatives, including a new initiative known as the Cannabis Impairment Detection Labs. Officer Derbyshire is a certified drug recognition expert and has spoken locally and nationally on impaired driving, especially as it relates to cannabis legislation. For a number of years, Officer Derbyshire has offered testimony in front of Annapolis's Maryland General Assembly in an effort to increase traffic safety through legislative efforts. Just as Kevin Quinlan worked tirelessly to reduce the number of lives lost in preventable crashes, Officer Derbyshire's dedication to training other officers truly embodies not only Montgomery County Police Department's mission, but also the mission of all of us throughout the state of Maryland. We consider her an integral part of our mission to reduce and ultimately eliminate these preventable highway tragedies. I'd like to invite Secretary Slater and Governor Hogan up to help me present the award to Officer Derbyshire.
Thank you very much for allowing me to be here today. It's a great honor. Good afternoon, Governor Hogan, Secretary Slater, Administrator Nizer, and family and friends of those who we fondly remember today. I am humbled and honored to receive the Kevin Quinlan Award. When I started this career almost 2 decades ago, I would have never thought that I'd be standing up here in front of you today. I'm so appreciative and grateful that traffic safety and impaired driving enforcement is where my career has led me. The amazing people I have met along the way, the support we've had as law enforcement, all the way from Governor Hogan and his pushes for improving legislation, including a felony DUI bill, to my department supporting me day in and day out for DUI and DUID efforts. I'm truly appreciative to the Maryland Highway Safety Office, making sure that we have the resources to do the job of impaired driving enforcement and thank you for helping to make certain that they are not on the roadways for potentially saving their lives as well as lives of others. It's something that we hear every day. These are all things that happen routinely in our state, and for that we should be proud of all of our efforts, and I know that I certainly am. I'd like to quickly thank a few people specifically, my husband and 3 amazing kids who I wouldn't want to do this life without, my parents for always being there for me, for my best friend, who's a sister I never had, my command staff, Chief Marcus Jones, Assistant Chief Yamada, Captain Jim Brown, my current captain, Lieutenant John O'Brien, who's not here with us today, but is always very supportive in all of my efforts, Lieutenant Adam Curry, Lieutenant Michael Ruane, and Commander Dave McBain. It sounds like I need a lot of supervision with that long list of people, but hopefully that's not the case. I appreciate all of you for supporting my efforts and those of the department when it comes to impaired driving and traffic safety. I would then want to thank my predecessor, Bill Morrison, for showing me how to do things right, even when it's not easy. And lastly, I'd like to thank the fantastic group of officers that I consistently teach with. There are about 10 to 12 of us that teach various classes all throughout the state and in neighboring states to help others learn about impaired driving enforcement. These people are the best of the best. This award could have easily gone to any of them. I say this not to convince anyone that they made the wrong choice, but to give you comfort and assurance of the quality of people out there looking out for others, looking out for your families day in and day out with regard to road safety, improving traffic safety, and working towards 0 deaths. I'd also like to thank the families here today. I can only imagine how hard this day is for you, but you should know that the stories of your loved ones, the descriptions of the lives that they led, the people who they were, and what they accomplished in their lives cut too short are what inspires myself, others, our department, other departments across the state, and even across the nation to do what we do, to fight the good fight. Your loved ones inspire us, even in death, so thank you for being a part of their lives, for nurturing and supporting them, and for allowing us to remember them and why we do what we do every day. Thank you again for this award and for allowing me to be a part of your lives today.
Well, it is very clear to see, despite her humbleness, why Officer Deborah Shire was the exact right recipient for this award. I can tell you from the Highway Safety Office standpoint, there is not anything that we ask her to assist with that she does not step up and do so willingly and happily. And so we are certainly grateful for her work in helping us reach that goal of 0 fatalities on our roadways. As we move forward into the holiday season and enter into 2022, MDOT knows that data is the foundation for everything we do in terms of eliminating impaired driving and reaching that goal of 0 fatalities. It's something that's instrumental to what we do from a Highway Safety Office standpoint, but also our law enforcement partners need to know where to apply themselves and what's the best way to move forward. To support that effort, the Maryland Highway Safety Office has worked with the Maryland State Police and the Maryland State Highway Administration to develop a more comprehensive and timely data that will now be available for the first time ever on zerodustmd.gov. It's a huge step forward for the state of Maryland. That data will be available for anybody to take a look at. It is broken down by jurisdiction as well as month, and it provides all of our highway safety partners another tool in our tool belt, which we know is much needed. I would like to thank everybody that was involved in that process. I know, again, it will lead to our effort to reach zero fatalities. Before we go, I just want to say another thank you to our law enforcement officers. Last month, we recognized 75 officers for their commitment to removing impaired drivers off the street. Some of them are here today and help walk the families up to the podium. Among those were 3 officers who made over 100 DUI arrests. That is really phenomenal. And again, these are difficult arrests, as we know, oftentimes late at night, oftentimes on a dangerous shoulder of a roadway. And we are so grateful and appreciative of all they do to keep us safe. Bringing together community at events like this one helps us to remember those who are lost and who are forever impacted by someone's choice. Again, that's a personal choice to get behind the wheel while impaired. I want to thank you all for being here today. Again, as a reminder, it is so important as we share those stories that we remember our loved ones. We carry that forward in our goal to reach zero fatalities so that no other families have to endure what you live with. This concludes our 18th annual Maryland Remembers event. Please join us upstairs in the governor's reception room where light refreshments will be served. Thank you again. I wish everybody a wonderful Thanksgiving and a happy and healthy and safe holiday season. Thank you.